Fine arts survey waiver.
I submitted the a recommendation to the board based on the feedback we received and the thorough discussion that occurred on the November 13th board meeting. The district already has a waiver in place that allows a student to waive the 0.5 fine arts credit. That's the any credit that they have to take with 4 years of the same world language. So the fine arts survey I'm recommending the board adopts for now is that a fine arts survey graduation requirement will be waived if a student earns 4 credits within an area of concentration within the fine arts. Music, visual arts, performing arts. I put dance/drama because we don't offer enough drama classes for 4 years concentration. So if a student had, you know, a combination of those two, that's something the board can consider.
Because vocational classes are also part of what the state allows, should we allow for a student who's in a vocational track?
If that's something the board wants to consider, the biggest thing I pulled from our discussion from the board and the 2 proposals that were brought to you last month was that we're looking for consistency, and that it seemed the waivers that were being proposed were not consistent with the previous waivers.
I think there's another issue. The other issue is how many people are actually going to be affected, and I don't really see that here. I mean, what I want is an analysis of how many people are really going to be affected, because if like 10 people are affected, that's no waiver at all. So I really want to see the hard data. I think that's going to be helpful. And if you just want to keep it to the fine arts, I'd like to see an analysis of what happens if someone just takes 4 credits in any fine arts if they waive it. Because to me that seems like a reasonable option too.
Well, that's kind of, I mean, that's something that's how I started to put the dance and drama together. So you're saying if a student took 2 years of ceramics, 2 years of music,
just
they got 4 years. 4
of anything, and he waives out, because that way he has, you know, he's got a bunch of fine arts experience. Why are we making him take that? And like I said, I just want that as a proposal, and I'd like to see the effect. How many people are going to waive out? Because if we spend all this time and the de facto result is like no one waives, we've accomplished nothing. And I don't think, I'm not speaking for Laura, but I think we want to present options to the students here, because there's other classes here that in the future especially are going to be required.
That was based on the board action that the board already had approved a waiver. That was what I was trying to comment, and what I'm recommending is that we come up with something that's consistent right now with that world language in the 4 years. That if a student had 4 years of credits in the arts, that they would be waived from that class. And then I think that's something as we go forward, we need to reconvene that committee to talk in more depth the possibility of combining applied arts, fine arts, world languages all together. And so I don't know if I want to include applied arts into this right now.
Okay.
Because we only had 1 proposal on that from the applied arts department. We probably would need more time for discussion.
I'm just bringing it up because it's included in the state. The state lumps it together, and so.
Right.
But I think John's comment, rather than be so limiting, the fine arts survey is an introduction to all 4 areas, and if somebody took 4 years of art, they would have accomplished what the fine arts survey wanted them to accomplish.
Right. Well, that kind of goes back then to the original proposal I asked Pam to add to her proposal last week, with that if a kid takes a class in a performing arts and a visual arts, they were able to wear that instead of the 4. So, and that there was a concern brought forward from the board that there wasn't really a waiver.
You know, I got to say, I think you did what we asked you to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that you came with a couple proposals. I know that there was across the board agreement on what they should be, and we just said we want to have a waiver, and you came up with this. But I got to tell you, after reading it, and maybe my view's a little bit different than John's, but close, is it's a very narrow waiver, even the way it's written. And what really bothered me more, and we've talked about this before, is, you know, you take 4 years of music, you get a waiver. Well, if you're in the band, you can get waived out of gym going forward for 4 semesters already. So they're going to get able to be waived out of gym. Now they can get waived out of this. And it creates in my mind, an unfairness on a different level. And that is on your academic performance, because you waive out of gym and fine arts, which are regular level courses, and if instead you take some honors course or AP course, it gives an academic advantage to the same group of people, at least some portion of it, we don't know the statistics, but on music, that already have an academic advantage. And as I've said many times, on a gym waiver, and I know you put some thought in this and comes with the state, a varsity athlete cannot waive out of the first 2 years of gym. They can waive out of the last 2 years. So, you know, we waive music people out of gym without, you know, in my mind, given it a lot of consideration how it affects other purposes. But we don't waive varsity, even if they're 2 or 3 sport athletes, and they're getting what we would expect. Because your point before is you should waive it because you're doing
achieving
something
somewhere
way.
else, right.
You know, a 3-sport athlete is achieving PE, and they can't waive out of PE. So we're, in my mind, on an academic basis, we're advantaging the arts people versus the non-arts people, and this, in my mind, advantages them a little bit more. Even though it's what we asked you to do a waiver, and you said you think the waiver should apply because you're doing it some other way, just on the overall of what we waive and how we waive it, to me, it created a different level of unfairness that, at least, you know, we talked about a little, but I didn't anticipate until I read it a little more. So I'm struggling with whether, you know, we should make this, what I think is a smaller group of students, have an academic advantage by waiving something, even though they're in essence getting similar learning, because we don't do it to other areas who are getting similar learning, who would like to waive out of the classes where they are getting that similar learning. So I just think
Are you
it's
saying
something.
band shouldn't count for 2 different things at the same time? Would that be a solution in your mind?
It's to get closer to it, yeah, Mike. I
Maybe
would say.
So if they have a band and they get out of PE, that band class wouldn't count towards 4 years under this proposal of...
That would, you know, I'd never thought of the specifics of it. That would be in the direction that I would suggest, yes.
And then are you okay if they have band and they're required to, let's say, have 4 years of choir to get out of it? Or
Well, this
do you think...
recommendation does include those: choir, music, dance.
Well, I know, but
Okay.
would
But
you
only
be
people in the marching
leaning...
band get the waiver, so it's
That's
band
correct.
people who are getting that.
Whoever gets it for PE, it doesn't count towards this, but are you okay with the 4 years in one area, or would you...
Well, I'm struggle. It's a good question. I struggle a little because I listened to what Pam and Kevin said, and I understand they think you should only waive it if you're getting something similar, but we don't do that in other areas, in my mind. And so it doesn't add I guess it didn't add the flexibility I was expecting, where people would really have more room in their a group, like John said. It doesn't seem like a large group of students are going to have more flexibility in their scheduling, but maybe I'm wrong.
Do you have a suggestion?
Well, again, you know, and Kevin and I talked about it a little. I know that if you take 4 years of language, you already get out of the one other fine art. So, you know, I guess people think it's not a good idea to let you out of 2. But to be perfectly honest, I don't, because I know there's a lot of factors that are being weighed into this. But the one factor that I'm weighing in that I don't think is weighed is how it advantages students in a different way. It gives them a competitive advantage in their grade point average and their ranking versus other students, and that seems unfair to me, to students who, especially athletes, for instance, who they don't get to waive and get that competitive advantage because they do something similar.
Well, we've received some feedback at different occasions, Pam and myself, just in regards to the modifications we made to the PE waiver, because in the past practice, the band students were able to waive the entire year of PE. So basically, they were waiving almost 4 years of PE. So I think we've minimized the advantages that band students could have academically to take other academic courses over a student that is not part of the marching band. I guess what I'm struggling with is that in that second proposal that was presented was kind of the fact of saying a student achieving a credit in performing arts and a student achieving half a credit and a student and achieving a second half credit in a visual arts class would be getting very similar components to what the fine arts survey class includes. And that seemed to go down pretty quick with the majority of the board. But now, like, I'm hearing that 4 years isn't providing enough flexibility, and that was the original intent of me asking Pam and working with Pam and the administration to have a second proposal, because what about the kid that wants to try ceramics, maybe does ceramics for a year, maybe does choir for a year, or does choir for a year and takes a semester art course. Now they've had exposure to visual arts, performing arts for 15 weeks of each of those classes. They probably more or less achieve compared to what they can get maybe in 4 weeks. And just getting a taste of the 4 different areas of fine arts, and the board didn't seem to like that option.
No, because there was other things added to it. I think, and John, I don't want
Not to that one.
Oh,
That one, there was a third part about dance, and I think Dr.
Right.
Keene recommended, like, well, couldn't dance be considered performing? So if they did choir or drama, that's the same thing. And I said, I guess that could be considered. That was all I had on that one.
no, why can't it just be if a what bothers me is if a student has 4 credits in art. 4 credits, whatever they took, they got 4 credits. That's 3 credits more than they need. It would bother me if they have to go to summer school to take a .5 of fine arts survey. It seems to me they've already got 4 credits, regardless of what those 4 credits are in. They're obviously engaged in the arts.
So you're
Yeah, I think
recommending.
you've said what I was trying to say.
Right, isn't
Much-
that- okay.
Much simpler way.
Okay, so
Okay.
basically, it's the same waiver I'm recommending, except we would eliminate the one area of concentration.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't it seem silly that if somebody was that passionate and took art every year, that we'd make them go to summer school to take a survey of the classes they may have already taken?
Well, if I recall correctly, though, actually, the suggestion Kevin calls number 2 was less, it was 3 classes, and we objected to it because, in essence, it appeared the person, by waiving out of, he only had to take 2, one had to be fine arts, and if you didn't want to take fine arts, you had to take 3. And we rejected it because we said, why should we, that's more fine arts.
Right.
So what Kevin is saying, that we rejected
I'm
the,
looking at
in
last
essence, 3
proposal.
fine arts to get out a waiver, and so now we're kind of suggesting 4 fine arts,
Well,
which is
I'm
more.
just starting at a place, but maybe there's 2 questions here. I don't know when you have to make changes to get on the curriculum for students to register. But probably what needs to happen, the board has to look at how we do curriculum and maybe not have these unique requirements and be more open.
That-
You know, if you have to have 4 credits of math, it's all of these. If you have to have 4 language, it's all of these. And more choice. And so maybe that's a discussion for the 2014, and we get away from some of these, you know, little things in there.
That has been my recommendation, or my thought to the board for the last year or so since this has been taught. Do not lower your graduation requirements, but increase flexibility for students to pursue academic interest. If you're requiring 3 years of social studies, have the state requirements, and then allow flexibility within there for a student that wants to major in psychology to pursue psychology. Those that want to pursue economics. That's always been something that I'm a big proponent of. But I think that would be significantly changing the culture that is established here, and we talked about that will take some more time.
But
And Tim is correct. Give me 1 second. Tim is correct, and what I'm saying is what you basically just agree with Laura, that basically any 4 years of fine arts would be sufficient, that they shouldn't have to take the survey class, is actually more than what I was requiring last week.
Right.
I think we need to start somewhere, and then we need to have,
well, this just seems more restrictive, though, to me.
But last time on your proposal too, you had .5 in 3 different disciplines.
yeah.
Under this one, you could be in choir for 4 years, 1 discipline.
Correct. But still, it would be, the .5 would still be 1.5 credits of fine arts, where here you're saying a student has to have 4 credits. So, I mean, technically, we're saying they have to take,
Well, that's giving the
More
people
classes.
who want to concentrate more in fine arts the flexibility, because they're already taking the 4
Correct.
credits. And
So
whether,
what if we-
whether it's all in one discipline or in multiple disciplines.
right,
What if we took the waiver and broke it out from two different viewpoints? The one viewpoint is the one kid has spoken twice and one student spoke twice. If I'm a fine arts major, I'm taking fine arts all the time through school, I should not need to take fine arts survey. That person would be working with that. The other one is a student that says, hey, what can I do? What can I help to impact the students more with the arts? Not with they can take the fine arts survey or allow them to take what they want. You know, your problem about flexibility, and if it is a number, 1.5 or 2 or whatever it is, being able to allow that student to choose within those fine arts curriculum those classes he wants to take, and maybe offer that option. And then you have your world language people, which are focused. Their focus is going to be that they want to have another language to be able to possess and work with them. So I think you're hitting all populations, and there are going to be people that say, I'm going to take the fine arts survey,
Well, if you look at this too, logically, why does the world language have anything to do with the fine arts? Why is that there? To me, it doesn't make any sense. I mean,
The
you could be
state
logical
lumps
about
it
it.
together.
The state does, but
The state lumps 1 credit. Granted, our requirements are much higher than the state, but the genesis of that is the state puts world language with vocational courses and fine arts all in one box. Not that it means anything, but that's the genesis of probably why
Okay.
that.
Pam, do you have any historical on why the 4 years counts for the year of fine arts? 4 years of language?
I think it goes back to when you're in your 3rd, especially your 4th year of a language, you are studying the art, the culture at a deeper level. You're reading the literature. You really are going into the artwork, the political background. You're getting very deeply into the culture. And so I think it's that the exposure at that level is covering some of the concepts. Maybe not in the same way, but there was enough overlap of some of the content when they looked at it that they probably, that would be my assumption. I from the discussions that I've heard at Leadership Council.
well, Laura, that brings up the excellent point about the state requirements about someone taking industrial arts. They should be the same thing.
Well, and that's where Kevin's talking about really having broader threads.
Right.
More, and so if we as a board say, let's try and get to that place where we have broader threads for students to really plot something out, that's a conversation we start having, and it doesn't happen in September, it happens the next September. But for the kids now, I hate to see anybody, for me, or what would be a reasonable solution, it's not a fix, but if somebody says, I've been in art classes for 4 years, now I have to take summer school, or I've been in art class 2 years, or something, this is one of those things where kids end up taking summer school and they prefer to work. Or prefer to take something else to get ready for college. So.
All right, so anybody else? So directionally, we want to come back on the 11th with...
With what I proposed on the 13th?
Well, a little bit, maybe... yeah, I think...
I guess I would take in Mike's lead. I think maybe we should consider having a limitation on how many waivers we give. That might do
Well,
it.
one class can't count for 2 different waivers.
Or not allow more than 4 waivers or something. So if somebody
Yeah.
wants a waiver on fine arts, they can get that, but then they'll only get 3 gym waivers or something like that, so that there's some equity.
I think the other
a
big
little
thing.
more equity.
I'm sorry, Tim.
Oh, that's okay.
I think the other big thing is when we talk about 4 credits,
That's-
band and choir courses are year-long, but most of our visual arts classes are semester-long. So if a kid took 4 semesters, technically they'd have to take almost 8 semesters of a visual arts course,
Right.
or some combination of visual and performing arts to achieve this. That's why, the board, I'm hearing from the board like this is pretty stringent, but then that's why when I said if they took a visual and one of their PE classes took dance, they would have kind of covered all phases of,
Sometimes we're a little slow on the uptake. You gotta put up with that, right?
instead of doing 4 years, they were able to do it in 1.5 and still meet all the requirements of the class, and they could have.
Could you mold that into here? Let's just use this as your,
Sure.
just mold it in. We're trying to give somebody flexibility.
Okay.
I mean, we want them to have exposure to the arts.
We
Please give
want
us
to, on the
the,
11th, being able to vote on this.
Right, but I do like Tim said, we don't want to count our money twice, so we probably shouldn't count classes twice for double waivers.
When you talk about the effect, we already shared the amount of students that are in a 4th year of language. That's minimal. The students that are 4-year band students, that effect is a little larger.
Yeah, that's huge.
Band and choir, Pam, on a approximately, what would you say that would mean? That would students that would be able, I mean, if you think about that chart I gave the committee where it said that it had already had 6 or 8 credits, it was about
I just can't remember.
60%.
Yeah.
We'll just go to a concert and see how many kids
60,
are.
yeah, it could be.
It could be on the
fair
average
number of
anywhere from
kids.
80 to 100 kids a year.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, 60 or 80. And then not to muddy the waters further, but what Mr. Walsh is talking about in the extra benefit that the band kids get is, that's a rank issue. And I know I had mentioned this when I came here, there are many high schools that have done away with rank for the kind of the reasons that you're looking at, and it's less significant to the universities now because of the fact that so many high schools have done away with it. That might be a discussion that the board would want to consider looking at. I'm not saying now, but in the future, as you're looking at the whole issue, that's something that has been addressed in many districts lately, and it might be worthy of a discussion at least.
Well, I think it's more than rank. It's the opportunity to take a class that has 5 points to increase your GPA. And so what Mr. Walsh is saying is a significant advantage for some students.
Right, exactly.
And even your
Just for
overall
the
GPA.
college application
Right.
process.
Right,
Not
your
just
overall GPA, rank, regardless of rank, because they'll weight rank.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
just your overall GPA is huge too.
All right, Kevin, so I think we muddied the water enough, so I'll be able to come back.
I'll bring back, I think I got enough drafts to go off.
All right, let's go to new business, and we don't have any. We'll move to visitors' comments. Anybody want to speak, visitor comments wise? All right, seeing none, I need a motion to go to closed session.
Resolved that the Board of Education Township High School District 2A, Cook County, Illinois enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, or dismissal of employees, collective bargaining issues, and litigation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by John Keen. Marianne?
Mr. Goodchin?
Yes.
Ms. Hruska?
Yes?
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Cindy?
Yes, so everybody, that concludes our meeting for tonight, and yes, it is before 9 o'clock, and have a great night. We'll see you.